We're in council chambers. Welcome all who are in the audience, and Noel, if you call the roll.
Tim Fogo.
Here.
Don Wall.
Here.
David Borwick.
Present.
Peter Thomas.
Here.
Jen James. Here. Sandy Pavano. Here. John Mylone. Here. Sylvia Nichols. Here. And David Melber.
Please rise for the prince. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, good evening. We start off tonight with public comments, and A being the first is the introduction of a new Human Resources Director, Jamie Lamar, Mayor, I believe. And Sean, you'll take over for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased to introduce to the full town council and to the rest of the town of Cheshire, Jamie Lemaire, our new Human Resources Director, who's here in the front row. Jamie comes to us from the city of Torrington, where she's worked for the past 3 years. She was previously corporation counsel there, as well as most recently the Director of Labor Relations and Personnel for the city of Torrington. She's, as I said at the last council meeting when I made the announcement, she graduated summa cum laude from the University of Hartford and also has a law degree from just down the road at Quinnipiac University. So we are thrilled to welcome Jamie. She's already been here just a little over 2 weeks and has hit the ground running and is doing fantastic work for the town. So we're just thrilled to introduce her formally. And so Jamie, here, if you'd like to say just a couple words.
Good evening, members of council. I'm very pleased to be here. I thank you for your time tonight. I'm very excited to hit the ground running here in Cheshire. I'm sure there will be new ways for me from my past, but I'm looking forward to new ways and learning new things. And hopefully once I have a chance to look at procedures and policies here, maybe we can work on streamlining and coming up with some new ways of doing things. So Sean, I thank you very much for the introduction. I do have some municipal experience, so I've been in this, type of role before, and happy to be here in Cheshire doing so now. So thank you very, very much for the opportunity. I look forward to working with all of you.
Jamie, thank you for coming and welcome to the team. We have a new team in town in many respects in Town Hall, and you're one of 8 or 9 very new people. The council's excited about that, with all due respect to everyone who's preceded you 8 or 9, because we've really had a town that's well run and well managed by the professionals in Town Hall and elsewhere. So welcome. And if any of my colleagues have a question or two, I would like to invite them. If you want to just say anything or ask anything, go right ahead.
I'll just make a comment, if I may. It's nice to meet you in person. We've already worked with Jamie at the Personnel Committee and gone through a new job description, which we'll work on tonight. So we're happy to have you here. Thank you.
We'll
be seeing a lot of you in the next few months.
I look forward.
I guess you're released from our
Okay,
hold on you.
excellent. I can talk a lot, so I will take that as my cue to go. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Our next item is B, the report from the Regional Water Authority representative. I happen to be that representative for the town of Cheshire. I did prepare a report for my colleagues, so they don't have to suffer reading it. I will basically read it. I spent the most time on it, so I guess I can read it if no one minds. First of all, I was appointed by the town council in December of 2016, and I've been a member of the RPB representing Cheshire and the RPB's Finance Committee since January of 2017. I'm one of 21 RPB members. There are also 5 authority members, which in this case includes its chairman, Mr. David Bowery. So he's the big deal down at the authority. But we're all part of that cog. Each RPB member represents a municipality, 16, that is either served by the RWA or has land and water resources, or is a combination of both. So everyone is representative whether they're getting water or not. Some of our direct responsibilities include approving rate adjustments requested by the RWA and paid by all of its customers. We authorize projects exceeding 2 million or more. We adopt policies pertaining to land use related to the regional water authorities, more than 27,000 acres. We name a consumer affairs officer. That individual happens to be Jeff D'Onofrio. This looks like a real Cheshire connection, but in a way it is, but it's not. Jeff was appointed before I was on board, and I believe, David, probably by your group. So anyway, he's not been fired. And also your rep serves as a link to the cities and towns we represent, facilitating two-way communications between the Regional Water Authority elected officials and the general public. So under the heading of water, the RWA draws 88% of its water from 10 reservoirs. 12% of its customers get their water from wells in Cheshire, Hamden, Derby, and Seymour. In the case of Cheshire, virtually everyone gets their water from 2 wells in Cheshire, and others get wells, their own wells, serving their residences, and they're not customers per se. Drinking water is delivered in a network of 1,700 miles of pipes, pump stations, and storage tanks. Fire suppression is another life-saving function of water service to our member communities. So all those pipes underground provide fire service as well, which is obviously extremely important. Water quality. The chief responsibility is to deliver the cleanest and safest possible drinking water to its customers. This is monitored by extensive year-round testing. The water quality meets or is better than the quality standards established by the EPA and the Department of Public Health. Each year, the RWA sends to its customers the consumer's annual report. I think ours came out probably about 2 or 3 months ago to houses in Cheshire. What's coming? You may have received a postcard on this. Every resident or customer would have received this postcard, which is dealing with new lead rules. Obviously, the water company is not sending out water with lead in it, but the EPA has a new requirement, which is somewhat onerous to the extent that it could be invasive to the public, and also we have no idea what it's going to cost. A lot of money, I would assume. And this has to do with the connection the water company makes to the pipes on the consumer's side of the job. Generally, that would be probably the connection a plumber made, when a house was built. And in the old days, lead was used to make connections. So this is an issue likely to occur in older communities with older housing stock and business stock. Town like Cheshire probably doesn't have too much of this, but nonetheless, this is potentially something that's going to be noticed by all, because it's going to be a system-wide interview with a household. So with that, just beware. And we want to be really nice about it. It's going to be one of those things that we'll all have to work together to make plain and simple for everyone to understand. What's happened for Cheshire? As the council remembers, the RWA water service stopped on Route 10 at the I-691 interchange up north. Working together with the RWA, the Southington Water Company, and the town, the developers of the north end, known as TriStar, were able to get the service extended under I-691 to the important Stonebridge Crossing development. The developer will install water and sewer pipe on their property, but the supply is there, and once connected, will deliver service, including Dickerman Road. The project makes sense for everybody. The substantial infrastructure cost to RWA was offset by a council-approved 50% reduction in their pilot for that portion of their system only. They also get new customers, and they get connectivity to their system in Southington's. What's up with Cheshire well fields? Cheshire has 2 wells on aquifers in the north and south end of town. They are recharged by rainfall and stream flow in these zones. Years of plenty and years of drought play a big part in recharge. In 2021 and 2022, aquifer draws had to be supplemented by water supplied through pipe system, mainly the Lake Whitney Reservoir. So water gets around and it's delivered so people have plenty of drinking water. What does water cost? Drinking water continues to cost the customer about a penny a gallon. We live in a water-rich part of the country, and the district owns a generous amount of water supply assets. Maintaining the infrastructure is, however, very expensive. Consumption declines about 1% every year, due in large part to better appliances and toilet that use a fraction of the water used decades ago. Many of you have driven past Whitney Dam in Hamden, just to give an example of what infrastructure could cost. It's 150 years old and it's very expensive replacement is now being planned for. So there's stuff that constantly has to be done and it's big and most of it unseen, but that's a visible thing that people will notice. New water rates. As of June 28th, which was just a few days ago, you will see a 5.5% increase in your monthly water bill, or about $2.45 per month based on typical usage of 5 CCF a month. Many houses use a lot more, certainly in town, I'm sure, but it's still a penny a gallon. If you got a bigger house, you're just using more gallons, I suppose. Other services, Cheshire residents can utilize Household Has Waste Central at the Regional Water Authority Headquarters Building, Sergeant Drive in New Haven. It's 9 a.m. to noon on Saturdays through October. Online registration is required, but that's where you can get rid of your stuff that's just not safe to dispose of anywhere else. And of course, pipe safe and sewer line service protection plans are also available. And it's our understanding, many of our customers are enrolled in those plans. So that's more or less my summary of what goes on and has gone on. I know it's been some time since I've made this report, but as a member of the council, I know council members are familiar with some of the stuff we have done in connection with the Water Authority. So with that, if there's any questions from the public and or my colleagues, I'm more than happy to answer them. Fine. I appreciate that moment of time. And with that, we now move along to C, which is a summary of quarterly consent donations. What we do quarterly is recognize in a summary total donations that have been received from the town and where they go to. I'll just summarize. This quarter represents April 23 through June of this year. The Fuel Bank received $150. Human Services gift account received $3,695. The Jitney bus, which has to do with the senior services bus, got a $50 donation. The library gift account got $190, and the park and recreation gift account received $600 for a total of $4,685. I don't want to say that's a light month, but it's a light month. Sometimes we come here with a report of double or more than that, but sometimes it also has to do with grants that are included in this. But we thank everybody who has been generous to the town of Cheshire and continues to be. So with that, we now move on to the most fun part of the meeting, and this would be the public comments section. Public comments are welcomed, and they pertain to stuff that's not specifically on the agenda tonight. So if you're here for anything that's not on the agenda, because we would reserve your moment for that time, feel free to come to the podium, give your name, address, and say your piece, ask your question.
Good evening. My name is Don Falk, 23 South Pond Circle, Cheshire. I'm here tonight representing the Cheshire Veterans Council. This is an open letter to the Cheshire Town Council and Cheshire Board of Education about naming the new elementary school. The Cheshire Veterans Council, on behalf of the Cheshire Veterans community, hereby goes on record with our strongest support for the suggestion of Haley Falk, Chair of Because of the Brave, to name the new elementary school in honor of Cheshire's Colonel Harvey Curtis Barnum, United States Marine Corps retired. In her comments to the council at their December 13th meeting, Haley pointed to Barney as the perfect role model for young people. A native of Cheshire, Barney is a Medal of Honor recipient who served our country for more than 3 decades. First as a U.S. Marine, second as a member of the Department of Defense's Deputy Secretary of the Navy, and then acting Assistant Secretary of the Navy. He is a life member of Cheshire's VFW Post 10,052. He's a 1958 graduate of Cheshire High School. He was president of his senior class, and his name is on the Cheshire High School Wall of Fame. Barney was recognized with the Medal of Honor because of his bravery and courage. Beneath those were his character, integrity, honor, patriotism, and fidelity, qualities that we would like instilled in the youth of Cheshire. what better way to promote these characteristics than to educate our students in a building bearing Barney's name? As Haley stated in her comments to the town council, naming the school after Barney would be a perfect start in teaching our youth about real heroes and why freedom is not free. She also said the Navy named an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the USS Harvey C. Barnum Jr., after him. We believe it is time for the town to do the same and name a school after him. Young people are 20% of the population, but 100% of the future. Or as Barney himself has stated, the future of our country lies in the hands of our youth. Sincerely, Don Falk, Commander of the American Legion Post 92, Jeffrey Falk, Commander of VFW Post 10,052, and Leslie Marinero, Vice Chairman of the Army Air Force Roundtable of Connecticut. And I would just note in closing that later this month, July 29th, I believe it is, Barney's ship, the USS RBC Barnum, will be christened in Bath, Maine. And I look forward to attending that. And full disclosure, Haley's my granddaughter, Jeff is my son, so watch out for the Falks.
Eloquently presented, and thank you for that, Mr. Falk. We will tonight be lifting the moratorium on the naming policy, but we will also be referring the policy for some other considerations for review and maybe changing the policy somewhat. So I believe we can certainly accept the fact that you're presenting an application, but there's more of a formal platform to follow. Obviously, that substantiating letter is considerably important. So we would certainly be able to take that into consideration. So I think at this time, that's about as much as I could probably impart to you.
Yeah, I
think it's a
understand.
very worthy consideration, however,
Yeah.
just my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, I understand this is not the end, the beginning, and there's more that we'll need to do.
Right.
I assume maybe I'll be talking more to Noel, but not sure. But yeah, whatever we have to do going forward, we look forward to
Well,
doing the
well,
paperwork.
ultimately, it's a council decision. So, you may have to lobby all 9 of us at some point,
Well, okay, you're all looking and smiling at me, so I hope you maintain it through the next election. And we can see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Bowman? Go stand in your corner, sir. You know what? The sad thing is, start there with your name and address. Oh, sure.
You can pass these out, okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay. 2, 3.
Matt Bowman, 422 Maple Avenue, Cheshire. I have given Mr. Slocum a little handout. I guess it's Veterans Night. But Mr. Slocum, you're a little bit remiss in, Jamie left. I thought that as the newest employee in the town of Cheshire, that she had to buy dinner tonight after the meeting.
That's why she left.
I eat before every meeting.
Yeah. So it's Veterans Night tonight. I'm here to speak about the POW MIA flag. What you have in front of you, I want you to know that what I'm about to say is not political. That's a UPI photograph that was taken in 1973. I was part of a security detail that took care of our POWs when they were released from North Vietnam. So this is something that is very emotional for me. That flag means a lot. Colonel Barnum, flag was taken down at the fire department. He's a life member of the fire department, as was his father. It's ridiculous. The flag was taken down at the police department. Your first police chief, John McNamara, was awarded the Silver Star during World War II. your arts place, the private Lester Rochford building, was named for the first Cheshireite that was killed in World War II in North Africa. Why these flags can't fly over these buildings is beyond me. I understand maybe your short-sightedness, maybe your fear of whatever, someone else flying a flag. In the military, the first article of the Code of Conduct is, I am an American fighting man. I serve in our forces which guard my country and our way of life. I am prepared to give my life in its defense. The most important part of that is our way of life. Not your way of life, not my way of life, our way of life. Everyone here, I just don't understand why these flags were taken down. There were suggestions made of how to keep them up and how to work through it. I don't like the fact that it was done as part of a policy and not part of your I can't think of the word. I'm sorry. I'm ordinance. Therefore, you bypassed the public hearing part of that. So I don't know if you were trying to sweep this under the rug. I don't know why it was done that way. But one way or the other, you should have at least had the courtesy, if you were going to remove these flags where they've flown for an excess of 25 years, to at least give the public a chance to have their views known. And if any one of you in that picture, you can, I don't think any of you have ever met a POW, have you?
No.
I didn't think so. In that picture is Commander Stratton. Commander Stratton's one of his dearest friends is John White. That's what a small world it was, or it is. So you can ask John about Commander Stratton. I just hope that you can resolve this quickly, get these flags back up. Barney Barnum is certainly going to be in Cheshire in the next few weeks as he passes through to go to Bath, Maine, where DD 124 will be christened. I hope that if he comes to Cheshire, and when he does, he almost always stops at the fire department, that you have that flag up. Now I'll make this offer to you so that it won't cost the town anything. The Bowman family is willing to provide the plaques necessary on the flagpoles so that this flag can be flown. I think that you have the ability not to name a building, but to certainly designate a flagpole as a veterans memorial. And we will provide the plaque for that memorial. And I just hope that you get it done sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman.
Need my name again? Just in support of Matt, I receive weekly a note action report from the VA. In that report, almost weekly, they identify the remains of the missing in action. And I would say our POW MIA flag at this point is as much or more about the missing in action. No one left behind. To that end, recently, a Medal of Honor recipient from the Korean War, killed in action. His body wasn't found. They finally declared him deceased and missing. 73 years later, his body's recovered and being taken home for burial, identified through the efforts of the VA. This is, again, part of the reason this flag is important to us. If you're familiar at all with Pearl Harbor, the USS Oklahoma was the only other ship that was actually sunk at that occasion. 429 were on the ship, and almost 400 of them were not identified. They went down with the ship, but their bodies were brought back to Hawaii, and more than one casket, the remains commingled. To this date, now with DNA, over 330 of those bodies have been recovered and returned to their families. Again, this is about the MIAs and the importance of this flag. I kind of leave it there, but the activity continues daily with the VA to identify the remains from World War II, from Korea, from Vietnam. I'd also mention Arlington National Cemetery, the Tomb of the Unknown, remembers those that are missing in action. There is no body in the crypt for the Vietnam veteran. He was identified. He was one of the missing in action, a U.S. Air Force pilot. His body was eventually removed, identified, and taken home to his family. So again, the importance of this MIA POW flag to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falk. Anyone else wishing to speak on this or any other topic? If I may, I do appreciate you gentlemen coming forward tonight and speaking so thoughtfully and with your hearts, if you will, and your brains about this matter. The council, 2 of 9 of us, in no way intended to offend or abuse the dignity of the missing in action. I, for one, must plead ignorance to the factor that there was that many in Cheshire hanging. So when the policy came forth, and I'm not seeking an excuse that, for my colleagues' vote or no vote on this, I understood the policy to be in place for memorials that were cited by Cheshire. They were legitimate memorials per se, with plaques and everything else. The one in Town Hall, and I think there was perhaps another one. That being said, I think you mentioned how many? 9 were removed? 7 or 8? 9? What's the number? I just don't know. Yeah. The firehouse, I did not know there was an MIA flag there. You've given it some texture and some context I was unaware of. Again, I'm only speaking for me, but I'm doing the speaking. I think I was aware at Public Works there was one. I think I just remembered seeing that. I did not know there was one at the Rochford, former Rochford place. That's my lack of understanding on where they have been hung. So what I will pledge to do is to revisit this with a more fulsome understanding of where the expectations lay for their placement, that doesn't stray too far from what the intention of our policy was. And for that, I don't believe we need to convince the Bowman family they have to put a plaque wherever there was a flag standing either. So if you can provide us with that information in an orderly format, just transmit a email to me or whoever in Town Hall so that we can assemble something, and then we will give it the thoughtful review that it deserves. Is that fair for my colleagues? Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we're going to move along to, what else? Approval of minutes. The minutes of June 13, 2023 Town Council meeting, the June 21, 2023 Town Budget Workshop, and there are corrections to minutes for June 13, 2023, the council public hearing. We have a motion.
Move as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Second, Mr. Favano. Thank you. Discussion? Any necessary discussion?
I'm abstaining. I was not at that meeting, but I
Okay.
did watch it. But
Okay.
I'll vote then.
Yeah,
watched it.
I think it counts. I think if you've read the
I watched it.
record, it counts. You just don't get paid anymore. So,
Not that big.
okay, with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. Okay. We now move to consent. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 071123-1, the consent calendar for July 11, 2023.
We have a motion. We have a second. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. All those in favor signify. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. We now move to items removed from consent, and there are none, so we are coming back to old business, which we start with the School Building Committee update. And we do have an update. Do we not, Mr. Gussenberg? Welcome.
Good evening. I have a quicker than usual report today. On your agenda, we have a recommendation for a hiring for what's called a commissioning agent, and that is Van Zelm Engineers. Commissioning agent is somebody who oversees all of the mechanical and technological pieces of the schools. They help do the design and the implementation of those pieces, and this was something that was very important to the architects and the builders to get this position in place. And we were very pleased with Van Zelm, and the price came right in at budget. Over the past month, we've continued to work on the development of both the committee and the design. The committee itself has worked closely with Arcadis in developing a much more detailed schedule. As you'll recall, we had been working under both a schedule and a budget that had put together pre-referendum. We now have a fairly detailed schedule, which will become more detailed as we move along, and a new budget format so that we can more closely monitor expenses. We've also gone through and laid out some very specific financial procedures dealing with invoicing, requisitions, PO increases, change orders, the state change order process, and state progress payments. So those have all been laid out, and this is where our owner's rep has been very helpful in helping us to design and implement these. And they were passed unanimously by the committee. On the design side, there's a lot of meetings that have been going on. Some of them are of the committee, but a lot of them are of the working group. We have had a couple of meetings on sustainability and mechanical systems. Dave Bowery noted when he came in today that he almost fell asleep while driving the car and listening to our discussion, but it was a fairly complicated and detailed one. But we are looking, deeply at the mechanical and sustainability systems for the schools. We had a detailed meeting dealing with site planning. And these meetings, particularly the ones of the working committee, include numerous people from the school system. So, for instance, the site plan had the transportation people involved, the people who oversee the maintenance of the buildings, and it got into specifics of bus radius turns and lining up buses in front of the schools and maintaining the sidewalks and all of those details that the architects really need as they're working on these schematic plans. And then just today, we had about an hour and a half, hour and three-quarter meeting dealing with safety and security, looking at all of the details. Some of it's in some of the new state laws and regulations, but a lot of it is also decision-making that we'll be looking into in terms of the structure of the school and how to maintain a safe but very positive environment. The schematic drawings are moving along. I anticipate that when I come to see you in hopefully August, if not September, you'll be able to see some of what's been put together for the schematic designs, and those will be going up to the state for approval as the first of the 3 design phases that we'll be doing. The north end one we'll be looking at very closely at our meeting on Thursday. The Norton schematic is scheduled to be really focused on in our second meeting in July. And then hopefully in August, we will see some fairly complete schematic designs. So that's where we're at right now. I think we're moving along well. We're right on schedule. And hopefully we'll start seeing some things happening real soon.
Anyone have a question for Rich? I do, Rich. Could you give me a better understanding of what a schematic design is? I know I've seen the little square boxes and I've seen some reshaping of them presented at your meetings that I've watched. When you are getting it to a point when you're actually sending it to the state, is that essentially like a design? You've got the gyms where they're going to be. You have essentially the footprint of the building. There's even an elevation, a visual that gives you some impact of what they're going to design.
You're looking at, first of all, a site plan, so you can take a look at the site itself, where the building will be sited on it, the driveways, the parking lots, the playgrounds. So you're seeing that whole layout. And then you're also looking at the layout of the building itself. Where's the office? Where's the media center, the gym, the classroom layout, all of those kinds of pieces. So it's laying out the basics of what this school is going to look like. Obviously, there's a lot of detail that needs to get worked out after that, but it's enough that you can look and say, when we're done, this is going to be the basic layout of this school. This is where it's going to sit on the property. And that's about it.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mr. Walsh.
Yeah, I just had one thing. First of all, thank you and your group. It's a monstrous job that you guys are doing there, and I appreciate all the time and effort everybody's putting into it, because it's a lot of work and you're moving along very well, as I can see. We just approved the purchase of the house on Jarvis, so that's changed. I'm assuming that changed your schematic somewhat.
What it did for us is it opened up another driveway. And remember, the North End School is going to be not just a K through 6 school like Norton, but it's going to include the preschool. And the preschool is a different animal. It requires it has a lot of traffic in and out, parents coming in, walking children into the building. So it's almost a school within a school in some ways. So what that property allowed us to do is to bring an additional driveway in. We had a driveway coming in for the buses off of Marion. We had a driveway coming in for parent parking off of Marion. Now we've been able to bring another driveway in off of Jarvis, which goes directly to the preschool. The preschool has its own entrance. Preschool has an administrator so that parents can come in, drop off, but there's also a place that the smaller buses, some of which are handicap accessible, can come in, park, drop off their students and move on. So we didn't have that ability before because there wasn't a space to bring it in. That's where that owning that piece of property has opened that up now.
And I recall us discussing, when we first saw the land there, the wetlands and how far up they actually come. Does there have to be another environmental study on that land, or are we pretty much set? We know where those wetlands.
We've done site studies on both sites at this point. We have a fair amount of detail there. We'll be talking to some of the town agencies as we go along, but no, we know where the wetlands are and where we can and can't build. And when they've laid out the building, they've laid it out so that it doesn't impinge on those.
But that also includes the fields that they will be putting there too.
Well, yeah, you're limited as to what you can touch in terms of,
Right.
there may be like a nature trail going through, there's some discussion of some things along those lines to use that space educationally, but not to, impinge upon the wetlands in any way.
All right, thank you.
I had one more question for you. And I know it came up in our discussion last when the architects were here. And there were some questions raised about, community ball fields and things of that nature. And of course, that doesn't dovetail with the students' needs, and that's really the scope of the project. But in the design process, will we be able to get some indication from the architects what could be reserve area for public ball fields, should the town elect to add them in the future?
Well,
Will there be planning that incorporates some of that information?
You'll see a layout for the entire piece of land. In some cases, there are already ball fields per the ed specs, which will be, built into that. It's more smaller soccer type fields, things like that. At the moment, and I don't know that it's in the ed spec, but the architect had one baseball field up in the north end. The Norton site's a different site. That's much tighter. And I don't know what's going to be possible there, but yeah, you'll be able to see when you take a look at the ed specs, how the buildings are laid out and what field are there and what possibilities there may be.
Well, it's definitely back burner stuff, but I know the planning's sort of being done, so at least we'll have a sense of the potentials.
And the architects heard that.
Right.
Obviously, they're
Yeah, I knew there was
they're juggling a
conversation.
number of different
Right.
things, trying to make it all work. But they know that there is a desire to try to get some fields in there, knowing that we may, be losing some fields, I guess particularly from Darcy and Chapman.
Okay. Anything else? Oh, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your question actually prompted my question. So to that point, Rich, with you talk about Norton, there's going to be, for a period of time, there's going to be two schools on that property. The new one in the back and the old one up in the front, which at some point I assume will be taken down. Does the schematic take into account what will happen with the front of that property post raising of the old Norton School?
Right. There's a couple of questions there. One,
Yeah.
obviously, we have an RFQ going to the committee on Thursday for a hazmat person specifically to go into Norton School and do a study of all of the aspects of that building, what must be done over time. And some of it may be done during summers and other times, so that we'll be ready to take that building down as soon as possible. In a perfect scenario, the new school would be done in late spring. As soon as school's over, we'd be able to move into the new school and take Norton down. That's a perfect scenario. We don't know whether that'll work or not. The plans all are written, the schematic designs, as if Norton is gone. So when you get a chance to take a look at them, those become your parking lots, your bus drives, and there's some discussion about a soccer field in the middle of that long area. But if you'll remember Norton, it goes up in a very narrow way. And
Right.
then widens out, the new buildings in that wider area. And then we're working on, and it's not complete yet. There's been a lot of discussion, and that came up substantially when we were working with the bus people. Trying to get the buses and the cars all coming into that narrower area without conflicting at all. We want to separate that out as much as possible, which is something if you've been at Norton presently, you know that there's a lot of crossing between cars and buses, and we want to really get away from that. So we're still working on that process within that narrower piece of property.
And I think that's where I was going with my question, because if it's designed to put in, for example, a second driveway that runs, down the other side, that really narrows that property even more, because like you say, it is long and narrow, that it would prevent any sort of fields or anything from being in that very front section, even if you put the parking lots where the old school is now and use some of the existing lot, that the playground area in the front could be some sort of a field, but if you zip a driveway along there, it would preclude that from happening. So
It's still in design.
Yeah.
I hate to say, here's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. I've seen a couple of layouts, but I think that's one of the issues that's still being worked on.
excellent. Thank you. And I know Mr. Slocum's point is well taken, that we're always looking for the, the extra space for fields. So thank you. And please pass along our thanks to your committee as well.
I have every single month when I've come here. because
Excellent.
You've been wonderful about supporting our work. And I think committee members have put a tremendous amount of time and energy in. They appreciate knowing that you're behind them.
Well, thanks, Rich. I guess that's probably about it then for this evening. So
Okay.
you can put it to rest. Thank you so much. Well, that'll be followed up by any report on Bartland Park South. Any update you might have, Sean? Or
Sure. Yeah, a few quick updates, if that's okay. First, good news that I know we passed along to the council, but at the end of June, we did receive word, kind of long-awaited word, that we received the $500,000 State Bond Commission grant funding. If you'll recall, when we awarded the contract to Dorita, including the alternate for the band shell, we knew we had basically eaten all of our contingency, counting on that $500,000 coming through, which we've been kind of working on and asking for some time now. So great news there, which gives us, from a budget standpoint, a lot more breathing room with the project. And just a few quick updates in addition to that. Very good news. We have the credit for the United Bathroom substitute that we went with a different model. That's about $81,000 after they added all the additional. We were hoping it would be a little bit higher, but there was some additional foundation work and other components that needed to be there. But that's good news. Credit to the project, which again is on time and at this point very well under budget. We are exploring, and this will be something I'd like to talk about with kind of the subgroup that we've reviewed, but here for the council as well. The area in the initial design, all of the sidewalks are bituminous, right? Sort of black top sidewalks. Whereas the rest of the park, the north part of Bartland Park, is all kind of more traditional concrete. We had explored during the design process what that would cost, and it was about $400,000 to do everything in concrete. But we will say, with first of all this credit and also a little bit more budget flexibility, we're exploring at least doing concrete around the turf field area, that square, which kind of ties into the concrete that's already existing at the pool and connecting in through kind of down towards, again, really up towards the north part of the park. We do have a quote for that at $110,000 if we'd like that to be concrete. So that's something we're considering. And at this point, I think it'd be my recommendation to move forward with that. Again, considerations of where we are with the budget. I think it would just tie in very nicely there if we can afford to do so. So again, something that we'll be talking more about in the coming days and weeks, but we do need to give direction to Dorita if we want to go that route. But anyway, the good news is there's really been no surprises. One of the subcommittee, if you will, knows that we were holding a pretty healthy contingency, concerned about things like rock and other things they could encounter. They really haven't. It's been very smooth. So again, we had about $360,000 in contingency. That at this stage in the project, with a project like this, we're feeling more and more confident that we again have some additional budget flexibility. Again, coupled with that $500,000 from the state, we're in a very good position. So more to come. I'll be circulating some more information and some emails. But again, all very good news with the Bartland Park South project at this point.
I had a question, Sean, if I may, with respect to asphalt sidewalks. I guess I didn't pay attention to that part of it. But that's crap. I mean, they just don't hold up. So how extensive, and I realize we can't pay for what we don't have money for, but how extensive is the sidewalk network that you're referring to that's going to be asphalt? Anything along the paved surfaces that are there would be asphalt, curbed with concrete, of course.
Right.
But inside it would be a sidewalk of 4-foot depth or dimension. How big are they?
Oh, no, they're wide. In fact, in parts, they're wide enough for fire truck access back to the van shell area. So I think that area is closer.
This is any sidewalk then, even if it's paved with
Right. We say
asphalt?
sidewalks because ultimately it will be the walking loop and path. Some areas will be wider than others along that path, but I could certainly get you the specific dimensions. But yes, the committee kind of grappled with this during the design and kind of frankly cost value engineering process throughout, because we knew we had sort of what we did. We have a defined budget amount, and this was one of those areas we just unfortunately weren't going to be able to do the sort of more premium pure concrete throughout the entire plan there.
So I guess it's kind of like the linear trail is not paved with concrete, it's paved with.
Technically, it's bituminous concrete. This is where the terminology I get a little fuzzy on, but it is still a concrete product. We refer to it as asphalt, but it is blacktop as opposed to the traditional sort of gray sidewalks that you're referring to. I think you're referring to, correct?
Well, I'm asking what you're referring to. What do I compare it to that's going to last?
Is it like the sidewalk on Route 10 in front of the prison that's blacktop? Or is it better than that?
Yeah, because
well,
that's like crumbling.
right.
That's a
It's
mess.
better than that in term. Well, I would submit again, and we weren't involved in the construction, at least in any recent years on that. In terms of the depth, and I know probably John is smiling a little because he knows all the different components that can go into this. The base depth and everything is very substantial for a very high quality, long lasting product.
Right.
But there's no doubt the blacktop is a cheaper, it's a lower cost alternative to the regular concrete sidewalking that we could do. And again, for about $400,000, we could do the entire,
That's a lot we
portion.
don't have. I
and it
realize
wasn't,
that.
unfortunately, right. And with
I
the
get
approval and the timing of the approval with inflation pressures on the project, that was
Right.
one of the things the committee had to grapple with.
Right.
I'll just add briefly, Sean, and thanks for that update. I haven't been following it. It's a very positive update. I tend to agree. We were concerned as a committee about having bituminous concrete, called bituminous concrete, but it's essentially asphalt. It's the same thing as roads or the trail, as opposed to Portland cement concrete, which is the gray concrete, which is much more durable. And
You can go
ideally-
vertical with it, right?
Yeah, I could go with, and ideally long lasting. But it would be nice now that you're beyond kind of this, the high, I guess, percentage risk, to think about using some of that contingency for concrete sidewalks. I think that's a great idea. The real issue would be the loop sidewalk in the Great Lawn. Does that want to go to concrete? Because that's almost a design decision. Does that want to feel more like a concrete sidewalk? Or is bituminous really more appropriate for that just because it's more relaxed? We can talk about that as a committee or the council, but I agree it's the right time to take advantage of the opportunity to potentially have some of that contingency available to us to get rid of as much of the bituminous concrete sidewalk as possible. So I think, yes.
I'd like to respond to that, and I agree as a walker on that. Part of the appeal for the walkers in that part of the park is to be communing with nature, so to speak. And somehow when I hear you talk about concrete sidewalks, I think we're not in a city, we're in a small town, it's country. That loop that I understand around where the big fields are going to get serious use for lots of people coming through, I think to keep the character of what that was with the asphalt would be much more pleasing aesthetically, and it's not going to get as much walking as it will be where there are baseball fields and all of that in the central part of the park. So my vote would be to not make it concrete on there, regardless of the cost.
And I would agree with Sylvia just simply because we do know what the linear trail is.
Right.
Okay, and that certainly it's even more comfortable to walk on. I mean, it's not a
Right,
bad
it is.
surface to walk on asphalt. I'm calling it asphalt because I'm old school, blacktop, whatever.
Right.
But we're not talking about what Don reminded us of, which is 4 inches of junk on top of,
grass.
right, right. And then it becomes that pretty quick. And that's what I wanted, that's why my years went up and I got a
But the
little
trails held
concerned.
up pretty well too. I mean, the
Yeah.
trails.
But they've held up great.
Yeah,
I mean, they need to be, patched because things crack but it's not a disaster. at
No,
all.
it's not. And I would just add that if you recall in the design, and I wish I could point out a picture right now, but the bathroom area does have a little bit of a sort of a sitting area, some benches. That's all what we refer to as concrete. So one of the reasons that I focused on trying to get concrete around the artificial turf area is that kind of ties that bathroom area into the rest of the park to the north. And then to Sylvia's point, everything sort of south, and then the loop that kind of goes over to Route 10 at the moment would be black asphalt material as opposed to. So we can certainly circulate some more information. I mean, I would certainly, if the council seems to agree, I would very much lean towards doing the concrete around the artificial turf if we could get some consensus
Yeah, then
around
just
that.
give us a line drawing so we know where the asphalt's.
Because they are moving pretty quickly. If you've seen, if you've driven by, it's all kind of laser leveled and they're ready on the turf portion. They're ready to put the about 13 inches of stone rock that comes in and then the top. And then, we may see that the fabric, we actually have a meeting tomorrow on the submittal for the actual company that's making the artificial turf to make sure it's in line with the specs. So that turf, while it may not be playable originally because it's still a construction site, as we talked about before, you should see, if barring any issues with weather or any other delays, again, they're very much on schedule. We may see that turf field once it can be ordered and installed even by this fall. So things are going very, very well. But certainly, I'll get some more information in terms of any other possible expansions of the concrete area that you'd like to see.
Perfect.
All right.
Mr. Bowery.
Just one comment. Also, I would agree with not spending the money to make the entire area, the concrete, the more expensive, but for a different reason. I still, just one of 9 council members, but I still think the play area, the splash area, if there's any money that's left over, it would be great if we could have that for the amount of use that would get for a segment of our residents. I think that would be a big plus as opposed to putting cement all the way around.
And on that point, not to echo the splash pad comment, but they did just open another round of steep grant funding from the state, and that has been a price point that other towns have applied for steep grants for things like splash pads. Again, ultimately a council decision, but Andrew Martelli and I have been discussing possible steep grant proposals for this next round that just opened last week. So more to come there as another possible funding source for the project. One last area that I know, and I think Don and I had a conversation about the area that we're sort of referring to as a town green area, not quite the Great Lawn, but in between Route 10 and there. We are looking at the potential. That area is pretty much left untouched by the construction, although obviously the installation of that walk path. But we'll have to talk about what we want to see in the kind of middle area there and how sort of landscaped and manicured we want to see. Do you want to see relatively inexpensively some irrigation in that area to keep the area green? Obviously, we're planning to mow it, but that's an area we're anticipating as sort of a picnic grove, a possible candidate for an area to be named. As you recall, we have to have a portion of the park named for Catherine Willits Chapman. That kind of grove area with some picnic tables might be a nice area option. But again, maybe a little bit of funding for irrigating and something that might allow that to stay greener as the Great Lawn is going to look, and it's fully irrigated. It's going to look wonderful. Might be something to consider too. So again, a lot of considerations, and it's again, good news that the money came through. We're not suggesting we want to spend it all at once, but some of these ideas that have been kind of on the table now might be a reality if we want to pursue them. So.
Based on all that, Sean and Tim, if you think it's worthwhile, I'd love to get the subcommittee back together to hash this out so we can come back to the full council.
Yeah, I think
with a
that'd be
recommendation.
fantastic.
You assume you feel
Yeah.
the same? Yeah.
Well, particularly since we can
There's a
all
lot-
sort of see what's going on now. There's visual impact already, to be seen. And they're working good. Yes, Sandy?
I just want to make one comment. I'm more of a visual person,
Mm-hmm.
so I appreciate the discussion, but I'd really like to see how this is going to be laid out and some of the suggestions you have made. I'd like to see a visual. Sure.
Thanks, then. I guess you'll just assemble that group whenever it's necessary, I guess sooner rather than later. Okay. We're now going to go to new business, and we're going to begin with A, the adoption of selected projects for the FY 2023-2024 annual capital expenditure budget. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 071123-2. Be it resolved that the Town Council adopts the annual capital budget for fiscal years 2023 through 2024, items 1 through 36 as attached.
Thank you for that. May I have a second? We have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Discussion, or actually, you probably should just tell us what we're
Yes.
doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The culmination of a lot of budget workshops has started in March with the operating budget and the capital budgets. As the departments came in, we highlighted some of the capital budget with them, but then we had specific weekly meetings in May and June for the capital budget items. And this is ahead of what the charter envisions. So there lies an issue that we're ahead of schedule. The charter requires us to adopt not sooner than 90 days from the referendum date, which is in November. The Secretary of State says we cannot adopt closer than 60 days. So we will be having a special council meeting 2 days after our regular council meeting would have been on August 10th to adopt the remaining 5 items that are referendum items. But, and I'll get to those in a minute, but the list right now that is this motion, the 36 items, are totaling $7.4 million gross or $5.9 million net. Now, the net is because we have judiciously put aside money in the operating budget that is in what we call capital non-recurring. We have also used some ARPA funds for this. About $400,000 are used here, but also the item 36, which is Arts Place, the leasehold improvements, that will be ARPA funds as well. And that puts in $360,000, which we didn't actually vote on when we sent the draft as a full council, but we have subsequently voted on wanting to put Arts Place there. And this is the fit out and the build out of that. And we all had agreed in principle that's what we would want to do. And this is putting it into action. So of these 36 items that are $7.4 million gross, there are 5 items that are not here tonight. That's $460,000, a hard number for the culvert on Industrial Avenue, and we must replace that. It needs to be done. $1.6 million to continue our road rehabilitation program, $2.5 million for 2 fire trucks. And the reason we agreed as a council in principle last month to do 2 fire trucks at once, which is highly unusual, was because it's highly unusual to wait 4 years to get something. And we have to wait about 4 years to get the fire truck. So I have to put a deposit, and they may not even come at the same time. I really am not looking forward to whoever will be on the council at the time, 30 years from now, when they have to get replaced, having to replace 2 in 1 year. I don't think that's how it's actually going to lay out. We probably won't get them both at the same time. But if we get a discount because we're ordering them together, that's a possibility. So I think it's prudent that we put a $2.5 million price tag for the 2 trucks, and we'll see if we get approval. They will be replacing trucks that need to be replaced for both years of service and wear and tear. And then 2 other items, which are school related items, $750,000 for window replacement. There are lots of windows, as we all know, at Cheshire High, and this is for a portion of Cheshire High. Evan Massiana showed us a great little film of which windows they will be in the back side, I believe, and some of the south side. But they're delineated in the backup paperwork here. And then $600,000 for the boiler on the Parkside portion of the building at Dodd. Believe it or not, that's a newer section, and that was done in '96. So that's where that is. There may be some reimbursement for the boiler. There probably isn't much for the windows, but this is the gross amount. So this is the highest possible amount. And those motions you folks will be doing at the October meeting. But right now it's the 36 items that I must say, and I said it at operating budget time, this is a terrific council to a person to work with. And staff is phenomenal in making all the numbers readily available, all the information we need. And then for us to work together, yes, we're elected and that's somewhat political, but we're not here as politicians when we're putting these budgets together. We're here agreeing on things and horse trading back and forth. And honestly, coming up with a budget that we all agree on. Nobody got everything that they think is best for the community, but $12 million, $13 million gross, $11 million net is a lot of money, a little more than some of the budgets have been. But we know the last couple of years, we tried to clear the deck on items because we wanted the most important item the town has ever voted on, the most expensive item town has ever voted on, and that is the 2 new schools to handle our aging schools as well as their modernization of our schools, but also the enrollment that's coming. And the enrollment is here and it's coming. So we needed to do that, and we're glad it was done. And so maybe we put off some other things, but with inflation and all, this is about the size of what our budgets were prior to the cutback in order to make the schools work. So I think this is a good plan. It's a bipartisan plan, nonpartisan plan, I should say, because we're all working together on it. It's affordable. It's within the range of what we have done in the past, a little higher than some, but when you figure in, like I said, inflation and all of that, it really isn't. And I think this will maintain the infrastructure, which we have the responsibility to do. And we got over $500 million in infrastructure that needs to be maintained. And this is a reasonable level of expenditures for its maintenance. And with that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Bowery. And I'm just going to restate that we're only voting on, you talked about the 5 items that we're voting on and Thursday, August 10th, I believe it is, meeting, which we moved for that statutory reason required by our charter and the state of Connecticut. So we're voting for the 36 listed items on the thing. Any other questions from colleagues, or we're all set to go? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? You got that right, David. It went partisan, just nonpartisan, just the way it was supposed to. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Okay, here we move along to B, the approval of the Senior Library Associate Technology job description. Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 071123-3. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendation of the Personnel Committee, the Town Council approves the updates to the Senior Library Associate Technology job description as presented and attached.
Motion, thank you, Mr. Talbot, for the second discussion.
This is a result, it's just cleaning up some language and tightening up the requirements for this position, which has resulted from changing the current library technology person to becoming the, what did we call him? I've forgotten his, library technology coordinator. So this person, the description here will be someone who will help him with his job and enact with the public quite frequently and help old people like me help figure out our computers. So that he will work with the staff at the library occasionally on the desk and fill that position, he or she. And so it really doesn't change much. We're looking for somebody who has technology experience as well as library knowledge, because the job will connect those two things, and it will be able to help the technology coordinator to maintain the library and the computers that are in the library and keep them current. Any comments from you, Peter or Don? I mean, basically.
The only thing, I mean, I did ask Beth what she was looking for in terms of this, and Sylvia touched on it a little bit, but I think what they're looking for is more of an IT person versus, so if somebody has IT experience but no library experience, they can still apply because this is what they're doing. They can teach them the library end of it. I think it's more helping with all the computers and everything there, so. And I think it's a great move. Beth has done a great job in that library and has done a lot with the personnel, and I think it's running so efficiently now.
They have realigned the jobs in the library to make it much more efficient. So we're pleased to present that to you. So I hope you'll all approve it.
Sounds good to me. Any other questions or comments, or okay? So call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Those present. Okay, this brings us along to the approval of amendment number 1 for an extension to the Master Municipal Agreement for Construction Projects, the agreement known as MMAC or MMAC. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves resolution number 071123-4. Be it resolved that Town Council approves the amendment number 1 to the master municipal agreement for construction projects with the State Department of Transportation, extending the term of the master agreement through August 21st, 2024. And be it further resolved that town council authorizes town manager Sean M. Kimball to execute the amendment to the master agreement per the terms and conditions presented with approval from the town attorney as to form and function.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Thank you, Ms. Nichols.
The last time we did this was, I think, 2013. We have to do it roughly every 10 years. Sean, you might be able to explain it a little better.
Yeah, sure. And if I can't, I'll turn it to Attorney D'Onofrio because I know this is something that the state's requiring all towns to engage in. This is actually a one-year extension. My understanding is the state kind of has come to realize that these are all expiring now, and we need this one-year extension. Other than that, again, it governs the terms and conditions for municipal projects that are funded in part by state funds administered by the Department of Transportation. Attorney D'Onofrio, is there anything else you want to add to that?
You covered it. You know, the council obviously previously approved the master municipal agreement. This is an extension of that agreement.
Yeah, that's about as dry as I can be. And I think that for the state to hold it another year is just a good. So with that, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. We next move along to award of contract for the commissioning agent for the New Norton and New North End Elementary School projects. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is going to be in two separate resolutions, one for the Norton School project and one for the North End. So start with the first one. Be it resolved that Town Council approves resolution number 071123-5A. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the Town Council hereby awards the contract for commissioning services for the new Norton Elementary School construction project to Van Zelm Engineers in the base amount of $149,550. And be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contract pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
So that motion is approved and seconded. So I guess we should discuss and vote on these individually, of course. So that's what we'll do if there's any discussion needed.
So, I mean, I don't know if Rich wants to add anything else to what, no.
I said the one. I guess we're supposed to do this. The one thing, as I said, I'd point out is that these did come in right at our budgeted amount. So we were quite pleased. And this happened to be not only the top group that we found as we did interviews, but also was the low price.
That's great.
Okay, I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Walsh.
Okay, be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 071123-5B. Be it resolved that pursuant to the final selection of the Next Generation School Building Committee, the town council hereby awards the contract for commissioning services for the new North End Elementary School construction project to Van Zelm Engineers in the base amount of $151,180. And be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute the contract pursuant to these awards and the town's bid documents upon the approval by the town attorney as to form and legal sufficiency.
Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Talbot. Any further discussion? Or you think we've covered
I
it?
think we covered that.
Everyone satisfied? Call for a vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, those present. Okay, we move now along to the removal of the suspension of the naming of town property. I see Mr. Veliber's not here. I was planning on him, but that's okay. I'm sure someone will jump in and volunteer. Mr. Walsh, thank you.
Be resolved that town council approves resolution number 071123-6. Be it resolved that the town council hereby removes the suspension on naming town-owned property as was originally established through town council resolution number 071420-13.
Okay, we have a second on the motion. Any discussion?
I think we had just, we had this moratorium for several years, and now we're going to have to be doing some naming of schools and other projects, so it makes sense to remove the moratorium for the time being.
Okay. Very good. So with that, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. Okay. Now, we'll go to F, which is a resolution I will read. It is call for the public hearing to name the room in the John G. Martin Outdoor Education Center after Frank Lohman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 071123-7. Be it resolved that the town council will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 10, 2023 in council chambers, Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider the naming of the room in the John G. Martin Outdoor Education Center after Frank Lohman. And be it further resolved that the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearing to be posted and published according to law. Here ends the motion. Second, please. Thank you, Ms. Nichols. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So we have that coming up. Okay, we'll now move along to the town manager's report and communications. We've received our other reports. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, pleased to present the July Town Manager's Report, which you should have handed out in front of you there. Starting with the first item, which is we're very pleased to be announcing the rolling out of a new and improved registration system for all Parks and Recreation, Community Pool, Arts Place, and Youth Services programming, which will be beginning August 1st. This is a shift from the Rec Track system we've had for a number of years to a MyRec system as the vendor will be using. Current patrons will need to go online to establish new customer accounts for their household. As again, like I said, the town is changing vendors. The patrons can also contact any of the participating town departments directly for any additional assistance. This initiative will create one registration location for all programs across town departments, simplifying access to information, programming, facility use. The new MyRec system also comes with fully customizable webpage where information, forms, policies, news, maps, announcements, calendars, text and email blast alerts, photo galleries, and more can be posted and updated 24/7. This has really been a charge led by John Golick, and other departments have kind of jumped on board, including Youth Services, who heretofore did not have an online registration option. So that's a nice expansion of services here. You'll see a link there, cheshirect.myrec.com. That is live now as of yesterday. So again, encourage residents to get on and create their new account. And I think you're going to find it's a much more seamless experience than we had before. So we're very, very excited about this. Moving on, but staying with recreation, just a reminder, Bartlett Beats concerts will start July 21st. We have Jeff Tohey, Southern Soul Rock. July 28th, Last Licks, who have performed here before, classic rock dance music. August 4th, Dizzy Fish, 70s and 80s. And August 11th, the Heavy Hitters, who also performed last year, classic rock. The shows on each of these dates will start at 7 p.m. on those days, and rain days are at the Tuesday. So encourage everyone to come out. This will, again, all four concerts will be on the north side, as we discussed at the last meeting, of Bartlett Park, away from the construction. Next item, just an update, follow-up for the council on our expanded local elderly tax credit bracket as recently adopted before this past budget. Following the close of the application period for the newly expanded local elderly tax credit program, the assessor's office has reported we received 28 additional single applicants for the new $57,000 to $74,000 bracket for single applicants. Total $7,000 of credits issued, and 34 married applicants in the new $61,200 to $80,000 bracket, totaling $10,200 of credits for a combined total of $17,200. So just information that I thought the council would want to see as a follow-up. A reminder again on bulky waste this fall, beginning the week of Monday, September 11th. More information, including the full list of acceptable and unacceptable items, are going to be posted on the website and advertised, distributed soon. Additionally, the town has scheduled the following special collections for certain items not permitted to be disposed in the regular trash or through the bulky waste pickup. Again, as mentioned earlier by Chairman Slocum, with the Regional Water Authority's Household Hazardous Waste Program, which runs now through October 28th. Pre-register at rwater.com. But also the mattress recycling and electronics recycling event will be held on November 18th, Saturday, November 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Quinnipiac Park. Also, just a reminder that up to 7 electronics can be recycled every Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at AJ Waste on Burton Drive. And finally, grass clipping collection, which is Mondays only, but through October 30th, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. at the old transfer station. And last but not least, believe it or not, the Cheshire Fall Festival is coming up. I know we're just sort of kicking off summer now, but only a couple months away. And we are excited for that. So mark your calendars for Friday, September 8th and Saturday, September 9th. The celebration, as we do traditionally, begins with Food Truck Friday and continues all day on Saturday at Bartland Park, culminating with the annual fireworks show. More information at CheshireFestival.com. And finally, just some upcoming town council meetings. Again, a few to be scheduled. We have a planning committee that is scheduled for July 26th, 6:30 p.m. Also, solid waste and personnel will be scheduling shortly. And then our next town council meeting, just an update for everybody, has been moved from Tuesday to Thursday, August 10th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bowery, question?
Actually a couple of questions. The very first item, the recreation, the library has events as well. So will they eventually become part of this?
So the library's events are not fee-based, right? You can't charge for library programming. So I know that that's one difference.
Registration.
They very much like the system that they use there, and they have a very robust user group and distribution and communication channels. But certainly something we could look to in the future. But again, the addition of both having youth services added on to this, and again, Arts Place and the Pool had used the system before, but everyone shared some similar frustrations. I think we even had, or maybe saw, can't remember if it was from an email or residents that have asked about receipts they received that are kind of unclear as to what they've signed up for and things like that. All of that is going to be much, much improved. And again, had the added benefit of being really actually at a cost savings to the town, slightly cheaper than the vendor we had before. So, but certainly we can continue to explore for the library in the future.
And then the other, the local tax credit, we budgeted a little more than that. So it's a little less than we budget, even though it's 62 households.
We did, and I don't have the full number. I do have the full list of number of individuals in each bracket. I haven't had yet the analysis of, that's the upper bracket, but I didn't see if we had major fluctuations within the other brackets. I do agree, though, it was less, and Chris McCardle agreed it was less than we anticipated. So good news from a budgetary standpoint. And certainly we are going to do a little more analysis to see how it compares to the traditional total amount of credits issued by the town. But my understanding, it is less than we anticipated.
It's good to see an additional 62 households that are getting a credit from the town and local government. And then the household hazardous waste, and it does say pre-registration is required. Honestly, if you decide on a Saturday morning that you forgot to register and you went and collected your neighbor's stuff and we don't turn people away. But it would be nice if you would register so we can get an idea of the staffing and all. And then lastly, I'm very happy to see that there are no special budget meetings on the last page.
Totally selfish standpoint.
Yes.
Anyone else before I ask a question or two? Sean, I have two questions. I know I brought this to your attention earlier, but I just wanted to bring it up again. I had a question on line painting on town roads in Cheshire, and the specific question had to do with the striping that takes place in the middle of certain roads in town, as they're having been fading, and for tired eyes, that's a problem. So I made a more pointed attempt to monitor some roads because I just decided to look and see if I was straying. And I was on a handful that are really faded, but I think it has much to do with the new surfacing that some of the roads get. I think that two-step process or whatever, it just almost absorbs the paint like nothing else. But if you'll find out what the policy is, if they're maybe changing a policy, whatever thing might be operating in the decision-making on that. I understand you have to deal with the chief of police on that.
I did. I actually followed up with Neil on Friday morning after our conversation, and he's having conversations. So the police department handles both crosswalks and center line painting budget, and he is looking into that a little bit further in terms of some of the specific roads that we had mentioned. I myself drove down a few of them and saw the same, and so he certainly has A, been made aware of it, but B, is going to get me a little more information about the schedule and whether any of that needs to be sort of accelerated in the future. So we'll be back to you with some more information
Okay.
for the full council.
And then my second one just has to do with the multitude of comments I've received from members of the public regarding their automobile taxes this year. And of course, we know that it's capped and we're looking for the money we don't get, but nobody got a bill they liked this year. And it really had little to do with our mill rate because our mill rate is actually higher on residential housing and other personal property. But car taxes were higher and people are amped up about it. And the reason is just and I know
Yeah,
what
so
the reason
just
is,
to be
but-
clear, we have also received many calls, and as have town halls across the state. State of Connecticut and the DMV really is the primary. That's where your registration, of course, goes, and that's where the values are all established by a standard practice across all towns. And so the reason people are seeing higher car values is, unfortunately, as of last October 1st, 2022, at the date of the list that the state uses to establish those values, formerly NADA, it's now apparently JD Power merger, has many used car values much higher than people than they were before. And we know that spike, I think there's a little bit of a lag effect from the spike of the chip shortage and really just the COVID impacted market shift in the value of used cars. For a long time, you couldn't get new cars, so then used cars became more valuable. But either way, we certainly share the pain. I myself share the pain. We all do. I know, living not just in this town, but in every town that relies on, again, one of our few revenue streams that towns have afforded is really just the property tax and the property tax on homes and cars. But you're correct that the mill rate was capped, and I think there's a little bit of I think a lot of the frustration is that the narrative was that the mill rate on your car was capped, but simultaneously values skyrocketed. So people were expecting to see a reduction. They saw the opposite. They are understandably very frustrated by that. And they've really seen the opposite 2 years in a row. Now, as I understand, the market has stabilized a little bit, softened from certainly the used car value market. I would expect to see perhaps a reduction going forward next October, but it's hard to know for sure. But the other thing that the state delayed, and this is another confusion, I think, for the messaging to the public, is starting next year, there was supposed to be a straight line depreciation in the value of your car. So no matter what it was the year before, there was going to be some percent applied, 5% a year, 10% a year, whatever it is, of a straight line depreciation. So you could guarantee, absent a significant mill rate increase by a legislative body, that the value of your car is going to be going down on your tax bill, and therefore your car taxes should be going down. That, while that wasn't going to kick in this year either way, that was to kick in next year. The legislature at the end of the session decided to delay that an additional year. So you won't see that anyway until July of 25. So it's a long-winded answer. We share the frustration. We've received the same complaints and frustrations here at Town Hall as people come in here every day and pay their taxes. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's
On another edge of the question, though, would be because people's values were significantly higher despite a lower mill rate, does the town expect more revenue from these than anticipated during the budget process?
I don't think so. Well, it's already higher
I know
than
it's
it
a-
was the year before because
An
we
inside
had a
baseball
lag.
question, but
Right.
I mean,
Go ahead, Jim.
my taxes on a 2016 vehicle went up $157. That and normally it probably would have.
So we had the grand list when we were developing the budget, final grand list, and it was trued up to that final grand list with those trued up values. So,
Okay.
yeah, this was something that we took into consideration.
So our revenue projections on autos is accurate.
Unfortunately, it's just now that the taxpayers are catching up with
Right.
the values.
Okay.
And I had brought this up once before, but should we discuss maybe a consideration of splitting the car tax the way we do our home and other property taxes? Because people are getting hit with $1,000 bill all of a sudden in July, and maybe it's easier to do 500 now and 500 in January. But I know we can't do it for this year, but maybe we should have that discussion to see if it would be, I don't know if it'll affect the town any differently versus maybe helping out some of the people who need it. I mean, because, but let's not forget, we have that wonderful sewer tax that comes, sewer.
At Christmas
not
time.
tax, sewer, sewer costs, that comes right at Christmas time too, so.
Okay. Well, we don't have to vote on your report, so, okay, so if there's any comments, questions on police and fire and fire marshal report, they're in our stuff. Jim, thank you for your reports as well. And let's go on to, yes.
Can I just interrupt a minute on this police report? It was just interesting to me as I looked through it. There were 8 or 10 stolen motor vehicles from people's driveways and in front. Every single one of them was with a car that was parked with the keys in the car and the car was unlocked. So I know we say this over and over and over again, but every single one in this budget, in this report from the police department this month, were cars that were left in the driveway or in the garage with the keys in the car and the car was unlocked. It's your mother speaking. Lock your car.
Well, thank you for that.
Sorry.
Every other aspect of the reports were good. Okay. Reports of committees to the council. Any chairman's got anything to say? Sandy?
Report for planning will be meeting July 26th.
Thank you.
You've seen what we did last month. We will be scheduling meeting.
Terrific.
And we will be discussing some use of the NEF fund in the near future, so.
Okay. Mr. Bauer, you already know, and there's no other reports, so we're good. Okay. I have a referral of the policy for naming town property to planning, and you're ready for that, Sandy. And a referral of the town manager's contract to the personnel committee. We're finally putting him on notice. But you have to give us a status update on you too. So we both have to get even. And with that, I'll move along to, oh, wait a second. I think this is also an appropriate, because I thought I would do this under referrals. I am going to name a fair rent search committee. As members of the public may or may not recall, the town had to establish a fair rent commission by state law, and we've done that. We did it by a date certain. We now have to populate it with 5 residents from Cheshire that qualify for certain things. We did submit applications to the public through different advertising means. We've received 7 applications that need to be reviewed, but I wanted to state before I name the people that have to review these, we still do not have a tenant. That is one criteria for the Fair Rent Commission. We need to have a tenant of one of our rental properties, one of the town's rental properties in town. Could be a big rental property. I suppose it could be a single family type of rental situation, but we do need a tenant. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity for anyone who might fall into that category who would have interest in serving on the Fair Rent Commission. We want to populate that group in August if possible. If we have to go longer and into September, that's certainly not going to be a problem, but at any rate. In naming the search committee, I'd like to appoint Peter Talbot, Don Walsh, and John Mylone. And you've already received the 7 applicants. You have to meet, and I think we also have some other determinations that are not necessarily addressed in those, and Arnett will help us with all of that. So that we'll just set up that meeting that makes sense for all of you. And then that's about it for me. We now go to liaison reports.
The only report I have is the Performing and Fine Arts Committee was delighted to hear that they're going to be moving to Poland Socket.
They were wonderful. I did observe on Facebook that the the Ball and Socket Arts had nothing but positive reviews on their announcement. I mean, they had a lot of positive responses, like 300 and some odd, which was nice. I don't think there was a negative one in there. Anything?
Just that the Cheshire Housing Authority has started renovating some of the properties down at Beachport, and they're looking quite nice. I've seen some pictures of it, and they're doing a good job with the funding they got there. So they're moving along.
As liaison to Economic Development Commission, there was a very successful business appreciation breakfast that many of us were at, and it was a great thing that they helped with the chamber and the Elam Park sponsoring that. It was a great day and a good way to show our businesses. We appreciate that they're here.
Yeah, it was a good turnout. I'm glad you brought that up. It's especially good. Well, Mr. Talbot?
Park and Rec was moved to tomorrow night because of the 4th.
Okay. Mr. Jenkins?
Yeah, by quirk of the council, I haven't had any meetings since last council meeting, so I have 2 tomorrow, so I'll have a more fulsome report next time.
Okay, terrific. Okay. Appointments to boards and commissions. Do we have any of those?
I do not.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. Was there also a question that was shared that you guys were trying to resolve? I thought I saw an email. Was that the last time? Something about an appointment.
I don't think so. Do you
Okay.
remember a question that we had, we're trying to resolve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what you're?
But you're not
trying to
taking care of that
resolve
tonight?
No, okay.
Nothing to do
Okay.
with what I'm doing
Okay.
Okay.
We'll
I,
talk.
I just knew that something had come up and there's always something coming up.
So but tonight I'm bringing forward the renomination of William Tanner to the Housing Authority. Term of office is 7/13/23 through 5/31/28, and Mr. Tanner is a Democrat.
Second that.
Okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those present. Okay. Town attorney report. Do we have anything, Mr. D'Onofrio? Nothing for public session. Thank you. You'll be helping us later. Council communications. Anyone want to share any letters you're aware of that you want to share to the council? I've received none, just a few that I mentioned already, just public comments about striping. Okay, miscellaneous. I have none. Terrific. Items for executive session. Upon a 2/3 vote, convene an executive session pursuant to CCGS 1.200-6 to discuss matters concerning land acquisition, contract negotiations, and pending litigation. All those in favor?
For the purpose of land acquisition, inviting the town attorney, the town manager, and whom else? Do you need?
Arnett Talbot and
Manager and management specialist.
Yep. Thank you for that.
You're off.
So we voted on that, right? Or we're going to vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, we did vote on that. Thank you so much. That's more than 2/3, so we're all set.
Yes.
Okay.